What's going on, people? Welcome back to the channel. I wanted to talk about today, toxic masculinity isn't fucking real. I know it's a buzzword at the minute, do you know what I mean? It's not even real. I was going to call this video like toxic masculinity versus toxic femininity, because if there's toxic masculinity, there also must be toxic femininity, right? And for me, it's basically a characteristic of a man, which can be a very, very normal part of being a man, that you don't like. And that's what people are calling toxic masculinity. I actually, I did a little Google search to, see some examples of what people say toxic masculinity is. And some of the traits that like people associate with it. A few things that popped up were violence and aggression. Aggression, women can be aggressive as well. So like, I don't know why. I think genetically men are more aggressive, right? It's natural. I think there is, there's times in your life where aggression can come in handy. If you're out and about and you can't protect your wife or your girlfriend or your partner or whoever because you don't have an ounce of aggression in you, that's not going to be a good thing, is it? So I think there's call for a bit of aggression. Violence, obviously not. Do you know what I mean? Like, violence is a negative thing, but I don't associate violence so much with aggression. You have mindless violence. Do you know what I mean? Wars, people killing each other for no reason over stupid stuff or the areas that they live in. Do you know what I mean? I feel aggression is only really necessary, to protect yourself. You have to have a little bit, at least. In these times where testosterone is like less than half of what your granddad's was, it's a crazy time. Like, people have never been less aggressive in a way. Another trait that came up, emotional repression. There is a lot. It's not really like widely accepted. It's more now than ever, I think it's more acceptable now for men to talk about things. But at the same time, that's part of what makes a man a man. Do you know what I mean? Is that you are less emotional, and that's not me being sexist in any sort of way. That's just scientific fact. Men are less emotional. We operate less on our emotions. I think, I was just speaking about my dad actually in a different video, but, the time that I grew up in, you just got on with shit. You just fucking got your head down and you just cracked on. How you feel about things as a man has nothing really to do with anything. You need to do what you need to do at the end of the day. So again, like, is that really toxic? I don't think it is. I think it is healthy to speak about how you feel and be honest. But at the same time, like, I'm honest about how I feel. I'm quite emotionally intelligent. But I don't let my emotions boil over. I wouldn't even say that's just repression. I'm just like, okay, it is what it is. I need to get on with it. There's shit I need to do. How I feel about it has no effect whatsoever. Another trait that popped up was taking risks. Like, how is taking a risk a toxic masculine trait? Tell me one thing, that is worth doing that you can do without taking a fucking risk. Do you know what I mean? Depending on where you live in the world, leaving the house is a fucking risk. Do you know what I mean? Like, honestly, like, you have to take risks in life. You have to. That's just part and parcel. Another trait was dominance. Like it or not, this is a male dominant world. And I do think, women, if they do the same job as a man, they should be paid the same amount of money. I think that's just fair. But having dominance as like a character trait, you have dominant women as well. If you look at any of the millionaire women that appear on Dragon's Den, I'm sure any person that knows them would say that they're dominant. Is it a toxic trait to want to be dominant? If you're you're a sportsman, say Michael Jordan, one of the most dominant players to ever play the game. I know I've spoke about Michael Jordan so many times, but he's such a good example to draw from. One of the most wildly competitive and dominant players you can ever meet. Like, again, like there's a time and a place for dominance. I wouldn't call it a toxic masculine trait. And you have, successful sportswomen as well that have to be competitive and be dominant. So how is that a toxic masculine trait? I got on to making this video, and I was thinking about like equality and, things of that nature. My son basically got into an argument at school. Equality is, it's a mad thing. People want equal rights, but you don't really want equal rights, if you know what I'm saying. But basically, my son, he got into an argument at school. This girl who is a troublemaker, she was aggressive. She attacked my son. And my son, who knows that hitting girls is wrong and he knows that he shouldn't do it, he was put in a position where he had to defend himself. And, trouble ensued because of this. My son couldn't then go back to school because one day, like, there were 40 kids. My son's 12 years old, okay? He's got social communication disorder. He doesn't deal with his emotions very well. He doesn't communicate very well. He got attacked. He defended himself from a girl who was, trying to maul him. And he just defended himself. If there was real equality, or you really supported that, which they try to in schools now, they say that they do. If she attacked my son, why can't he defend himself? If he gets punched in the face, why can't he punch back? So there's kind of like these double standards in equality. I think, like I was just saying, anything that a man can do, a woman can do. And if they do the same job, etc., they should be paid the exact same. I think women football players, actually, I think male football players should be paid less than they do. And I think women football players should be paid the exact same. I know there's an argument for advertising and stuff like that. If they're not bringing as much money to the sport, should they be paid the same? Can they afford to be paid the same in that regard? That's a whole different thing. But generally speaking, I believe in equality. I think there is, in times where aggression is needed, it's the man who has to do it. It's not women. You know, if you were out on a night out and trouble happened, you would, whatever sex, you would be looking to a man to come to your aid. You wouldn't be looking for a woman per se if you needed protecting. So it's a kind of, it's a mad thing. It's a mad time that we live in. There are toxic feminine traits. You have I'm going to talk about it, but these girls, women that are on OnlyFans, they're manipulating men. You know, that's a toxic feminine trait. Like using your sexuality to manipulate is toxic. Men can't do that. But this is just the way the world is, and the way that it's always been, and the way that it's always going to be. We have our differences, in our genetics, in our genetic makeup. It's just the way that it is. There are no real toxic masculine or feminine traits. They're just, traits that you might not necessarily like. It doesn't make them toxic.